My divorce from Emma finalized last week. 35 years old, living in Denver, and officially single again. 6 years together, 2 as husband and wife. Looking back, I can see all the red flags, waving frantically from the start. I ignored them. Love, or what I thought was love, has a way of making you blind. Those cracks in our relationship, they had a name. Stacy. Emma's best friend. Some people just radiate bad news, right? Stacy was one of those people. Loud, always needing to be the center of attention, and from the moment I met her, I felt like she was constantly assessing me, searching for something to use against me. Emma, though, couldn't see it. Stacy was her ride or die from college, someone who'd been there through thick and thin. I figured I could tolerate her for Emma's sake. But God, that woman knew how to get under my skin. Things started to really unravel during the wedding planning. I popped the question after 3 years of dating. We were living together, comfortable, and it felt like the right move. Emma was thrilled, and initially so was I. Then Stacy inserted herself into everything. It started small, innocuous enough. She hated our color scheme, called it basic. I let it slide. Who cares about colors? Then it was the catering, demanding vegan options because half the guests would probably prefer it. We had like 2 vegans coming. And then she actually demanded she walk down the aisle before the bridesmaids. Seriously. Her reasoning? I've been there for every breakup, every hard moment in Emma's life. This day is about celebrating the people who stood by her, not just the marriage. I thought it was a joke. Who asks for that? But Emma just nodded along, giving in to her demands in real time. I tried to intervene. I told Emma, "This is our wedding, not a stage for Stacy. Your sister is already the maid of honor. That should be enough." Emma got defensive, accusing me of making a mountain out of a molehill. Stacy, of course, acted like I'd personally insulted her ancestors. "Wow," she said, dripping with sarcasm. "I didn't realize your fiancé was so controlling." It stung, but instead of backing me up, Emma caved. "It's just one little thing," she told me later. "If it makes her happy, what's the harm?" So Stacy got her grand entrance. She strutted down the aisle like she was the bride. I could feel my parents' stares from the front row, but I just gritted my teeth and smiled for the photos. I told myself it would be over soon, that once we were married, Stacy wouldn't have as much control over our lives. Biggest mistake of my life. After the wedding, Stacy didn't just disappear into the background, like I desperately hoped. She somehow became even more involved. Emma and I would be making weekend plans, and her name would always pop up. "Oh, I already told Stacy she could join us," was something I heard a lot. Or, "Stacy thinks we should check out this restaurant instead." Felt like Emma couldn't breathe without Stacy's say-so. I tried to bring it up gently initially. "Hey, I get you two are close," I said to Emma. "But I'm feeling like Stacy's maybe a little too present in our lives. Could we, maybe establish a bit more space?" Emma immediately bristled. "She's my best friend," she shot back. "I can't just cut her off like that. You don't get how much she's done for me." Maybe I didn't. I wasn't there during her college days or the relationship roller coasters or whatever, but I did get that Stacy didn't seem to respect me or our marriage. And Emma was so caught up in their history, she was blind to it. I wanted to believe Stacy wasn't consciously trying to sabotage things. Maybe she just lacked the self-awareness to know when to back off. But honestly, I wasn't convinced. It seemed like Stacy just didn't like me. And the more she inserted herself, the clearer it became. I still kick myself for not speaking up sooner. Maybe I thought it wasn't worth the argument. Or maybe I was scared of alienating Emma. That was my mistake, though. By staying silent, I let Stacy think she had a free pass to meddle. And by the time I realized how deeply entrenched she was, it felt like it was too late to easily fix things. About a year into our marriage, Emma and I finally found a comfortable rhythm. Work during the week, date nights here and there, and weekend binges of whatever show caught our attention. Things weren't perfect, but they were good, peaceful even. Then Stacy showed up, throwing a wrench into the works, arriving at our doorstep one Friday evening. A complete mess, sobbing like her world was ending. We were planning tacos and a movie. I was halfway through chopping onions when the doorbell rang. Emma answered it, and seconds later, I heard Stacy's wailing. I peeked around the corner and saw her clinging to Emma like she was drowning. She had a duffel bag slung over her shoulder and mascara smeared all over her face. "He left me," she sobbed. "I can't do this alone." Emma led her inside, giving me a look that said, "Deal with it, we'll talk about this later." I stood there, knife in hand, feeling like I'd stepped into a bad movie. Stacy collapsed onto our couch, launching into a dramatic monologue about how her boyfriend of 2 years, Jake, had dumped her out of the blue. Emma sat next to her, holding her hand and nodding sympathetically as Stacy rambled. I stayed in the kitchen, pretending to concentrate on the damn tacos. But as Stacy's story unfolded, I couldn't help but overhear. Apparently, Jake had blindsided her, ending things over text because he felt they weren't compatible. Stacy, naturally, portrayed herself as the perfect girlfriend and Jake as an emotionally stunted jerk. "Do you have anywhere to stay tonight?" Emma asked gently. Stacy sniffled, her eyes flicking toward me in the kitchen before she answered, "No, I can't go home to my parents. They'll just say, 'I told you so,' and all my other friends are busy." I didn't know where else to go. I could see where this was going, and I wasn't thrilled. Sure enough, Emma turned to me, her eyes pleading. "Would it be okay if Stacy stayed here for a few days? Just until she gets back on her feet?" What was I supposed to say? "No, your best friend can't stay here, even though she's clearly a mess and it will mess with us?" So I just nodded, forcing a smile that probably looked more like a grimace. "Yeah, of course." I really tried to be understanding at first. Stacy was hurting. I get it. Breakups are brutal. The first few days after Stacy moved in, I tried to give her space, let Emma handle the situation. I figured a few days of peace and quiet was the least we could offer. But a week crawled by, and it was becoming pretty obvious that a few days was turning into an indefinite stay. Stacy wasn't just staying with us. She was colonizing our space. The guest room, which Emma and I always tried to keep relatively tidy, transformed into a disaster zone. Her clothes exploded everywhere, a swirling vortex of fabric on the floor, draped over the bed, even hanging off the poor, unsuspecting chair. Empty coffee mugs and greasy takeout containers formed a precarious tower on the nightstand. It looked like the aftermath of a teenage meltdown, except Stacy was a grown woman in her mid-30s. She practically lived in our living room, glued to the TV, binge-watching those brain-numbing reality shows at ear-splitting volume and hogging the entire couch. I swear, twice I walked in from a long day at work to find her sprawled out in her pajamas, face buried in a family-sized bag of potato chips, eyes glued to some ridiculous dating show. She barely acknowledged my presence, just mumbled a "hey" through a mouthful of chips. The kitchen was no sanctuary either. Stacy clearly wasn't much of a cook, but that didn't stop her from treating our pots and pans like she was auditioning for Top Chef. Except she never cleaned up after herself. I'd stumble into the kitchen each morning, needing coffee more than air, only to be confronted with a sink overflowing with dirty dishes and random, half-eaten meals rotting on the counter. The smell alone was enough to kill my appetite. Finally, I tried to talk to Emma about it one night. "Look, I know Stacy's going through a tough time." I started, trying to keep my voice level. "But she's basically treating our home like it's a free hotel. It's not fair to us." Emma looked conflicted, caught between loyalty and obligation. "I know it's frustrating," she said, "but she really doesn't have anywhere else to go. She just needs a little more time." "A little more time?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "It's been 2 weeks, Emma. How much longer are we supposed to put up with this chaos?" Emma hesitated, then said, "I'll talk to her." But when she did, it was like talking to a brick wall. Stacy pulled out all the stops, playing the victim card for all it was worth. "I'm so sorry if my presence is such a burden," she said, all teary-eyed and dramatic. "I'll just leave if that's what you want." Emma, being the kind person she is, immediately rushed to reassure her. No, it's not like that. We just want to make sure you're okay." It was infuriating to watch. Stacy knew exactly how to manipulate Emma's good nature, and Emma fell for it every single time. The absolute final straw came about a month into this ordeal. One Saturday morning, I went out to the backyard to grab some tools for a small woodworking project I'd been planning. To my complete shock, I found my power drill, my circular saw, and a whole bunch of other tools scattered across the patio. And there was Stacy, sitting on the grass with a pile of random wooden scraps, painting them in these awful, garish neon colors. "What is all this?" I asked, gesturing to the chaotic scene. She looked up, completely unfazed. "Oh, it's for my therapy. My counselor suggested doing something creative to process my emotions." I just stared at her, speechless. "You went through my tools and used them without even asking me." She shrugged, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I didn't think you'd mind." I was done. I walked straight back inside, found Emma in the kitchen and said, "She has to go. I'm not asking anymore, Emma. She has to leave." Emma looked genuinely surprised by the firmness in my voice. "What happened?" "She's turning this house into her personal playground," I said, trying to keep my anger in check. "I'm done with it, Emma. I've been patient, I really have, but this just isn't working. She needs to find another place to stay." Emma sighed, rubbing her temples wearily. "Okay, I'll talk to her again." But this time, I knew I couldn't rely on Emma to solve this. I needed to take control. I sat down with both of them right then and there and laid it all out once and for all. "Stacy, look, we've tried to be there for you, but it's been a month now. We can't keep this up. You've got to find another place." Honestly, I wasn't surprised she didn't take it well. The accusations started flying, heartless, unsympathetic, the whole 9 yards. "You're kicking me out when I'm down," she spat, giving me that trademark Stacy glare. "Some friend you are." I wasn't buying the guilt trip, not this time. "Nobody's kicking you out today, but you need to get moving. We've given you enough time." Emma looked conflicted, which was unusual, but she didn't jump to Stacy's defense. And then, finally, a week later, she was gone. She stormed out, muttering something about me being controlling and Emma deserving better. As I watched her car disappear down the street, I felt a huge weight lift. The house felt like ours again, finally. Still, a part of me knew we hadn't seen the last of Stacy. The real trouble started one random Saturday. Emma went to that brunch with Stacy, the usual routine. I'd stopped complaining about those get-togethers months ago. What was the point? Stacy was always going to be in Emma's orbit, no matter what I said. So, I stayed home. Figured I'd use the peace and quiet to catch up on things I'd been putting off. Nothing exciting, just the usual weekend chores. Groceries, laundry, maybe some yard work if I felt ambitious. By the time Emma got back, I was in the kitchen, unloading bags of groceries. I gave her my usual greeting, but something felt wrong. She barely said a word, just mumbled a "hey," and walked straight to the bedroom. I stood there for a minute, holding a bag of apples, wondering if I'd done something to upset her. Maybe she was just tired. I shrugged it off and went back to what I was doing. But all that day, Emma was distant, like a million miles away. She avoided eye contact, gave me one-word answers, and spent the whole time glued to her phone. I asked her a couple of times if something was wrong, but she just brushed me off, saying, "I'm fine," which clearly she wasn't. I figured maybe Stacy had dumped a load of her drama on her, and she just needed time to process. That night, though, things got even weirder. She barely touched her dinner and went to bed early. When I joined her later, she was curled up on the very edge of the bed, pretending to be asleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell was going on. The next morning, I decided to push it. "Emma, seriously, what's going on? You've been acting strange ever since you got back from brunch." She hesitated, not looking at me, and then finally said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Okay," I said, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What is it?" She finally turned to face me, her expression a mix of anger and hurt. "Were you with someone else yesterday?" I blinked at her, completely caught off guard. "What? No. What are you talking about?" Her voice got sharper. Stacy said she saw you in a parking lot. She said you were in your car, making out with some woman. For a second, I was completely speechless. It was so out of left field that I almost laughed. But then I saw how serious Emma looked, and the disbelief turned into frustration. Emma, that's ridiculous. I wasn't with anyone. I was grocery shopping. She described the car. Emma snapped. She said you were wearing your brown jacket. The words hit me hard. She even knew the parking lot, by that little strip mall near Main Street. It felt surreal, like I'd stumbled into someone else's nightmare. Yeah, because I was at that strip mall. That's where I go for groceries. Milk, bread, that's all I was buying. There was no one else. Emma's glare intensified as she crossed her arms. Then why would Stacy say she saw you there? That's what really got under my skin. I don't know, Emma, I said, trying to keep my voice level, but failing. Maybe you should ask her yourself. The implication that Stacy might be fabricating the whole thing seemed beyond her comprehension. Are you sure she isn't mistaken? Could it be some kind of misunderstanding? A flat no was her only response. Why on earth would she lie? I didn't know what to believe, she mumbled, shaking her head slightly. Stacy wouldn't lie about something like this. Felt like a sucker punch. She was genuinely torn, unsure. After all we'd been through, years of building a life together, she seriously considered Stacy's word over mine. I shot up from the couch, starting to pace. You've known me for 6 years, Emma. Does it honestly seem plausible that I'd cheat on you? And in a public parking lot? Does that even sound like something I'd do? She offered no answer, just sat there, staring down at her hands. I need some time to think, she finally managed, her voice barely audible. Those next few days were pure hell. Emma barely acknowledged my existence. She moved into the guest room, claiming she needed space. Every time I attempted to initiate a conversation, she shut me down immediately. I'm not ready to talk, or I need more time, became her standard responses. Meanwhile, I was lost in a haze of anger and confusion. I couldn't shake the thought of Stacy. This whole situation was right up her alley. Drama was her fuel. But what I couldn't understand was her motive. Why go to such lengths? Why concoct such a blatant lie? Did she honestly harbor that much animosity towards me? However, underlying all that, the bigger issue was Emma's reaction. The fact that she didn't extend me the basic courtesy of benefit of the doubt spoke volumes about the state of our marriage, far more than Stacy's ridiculous lie ever could. If she readily believed Stacy's story over my own, what did that signify for us? Was our bond really so fragile? A week later, Emma packed a bag. Without a word about her destination, she simply stated she needed time to figure things out. At that point, I was too drained to put up a fight. Let her go. I woke up to a text the following morning. I think it's best if we separate for now. I'll have my lawyer send over the paperwork. That was it. No discussion. No attempt at reconciliation. Just a text message and a lawyer. It was as if our entire marriage, our history together, had been casually dismissed because of a single absurd accusation. I was numb, struggling to process the situation. Part of me wanted to fight, to prove my innocence, to reason with Emma and make her see the absurdity of it all. But another part of me was just utterly exhausted. If she was prepared to discard everything so readily, maybe this marriage wasn't worth salvaging after all. Maybe this was the sign I needed. The weeks after Emma left were a slow-motion train wreck. The news of our separation spread like wildfire, and Stacy, predictably, made sure her version was the only one being told. It felt like everyone I knew had suddenly joined her fan club. Friends, people I'd considered close, started acting strange around me, avoiding my gaze or offering these hollow, well-wishing platitudes about finding myself. Even my parents, usually a safe haven, started fishing for information with loaded questions like, "Is there any truth to these rumors we're hearing?" The whole thing felt surreal, like I was trapped in some twisted play. Everywhere I turned, there was another reminder of how easily people could believe the worst about me. And through it all, the silence from Emma was deafening. No calls, no texts, no emails, nothing. just a black hole of communication. Initially, the anger was all-consuming, a white-hot rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It simmered inside me, threatening to boil over. But as the days bled into weeks, that initial burst of fury began to cool. What replaced it was something far more unsettling, a kind of hard, icy resolve. If Emma couldn't trust me enough to even hear my side of the story, then maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the woman I thought I knew. I sure as hell wasn't going to grovel for someone who'd so readily believe the worst. Let her have her space. Let her live under Stacy's influence. I was finished fighting for a marriage where I was always playing second fiddle to her best friend. If this was how it was going to end, then fine. I'd live with it. About 2 months after Emma walked out, a Thursday evening as unremarkable as any other, I was distracted with dinner when something completely unexpected happened. I was absently scrolling through social media, trying to forget about the emptiness across the table from me, when a text message popped up from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Marissa. I know Stacy lied about you. Can we talk?" I stared at the message, completely thrown. Marissa? The name vaguely registered. I remembered a party years ago that Stacy and Emma had practically dragged me to. But why would she be contacting me now after all this time? My first reaction was to ignore it, to delete the message and pretend I never saw it. But the way she worded it, "I know Stacy lied about you," sparked a flicker of curiosity, maybe even hope. I typed back, my fingers trembling slightly. "What do you mean? What lie?" Her reply was instantaneous. "About the cheating. Stacy admitted she made it up. I think you need to see the proof." The next day, I found myself sitting across from Marissa in a small, nondescript coffee shop downtown. She was already there when I arrived, positioned at a table near the window, nervously fiddling with her phone. I sat down, a knot of anxiety and anticipation tightening in my stomach. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't sure if you'd even want to." "Yeah, well, here I am," I said, trying to sound nonchalant, but failing miserably. "What's this about Stacy lying?" She took a deep breath, her hand shaking as she held out her phone. "I've been friends with Stacy for a long time, but after this, I can't keep quiet anymore. You need to know the truth." She handed me the phone, and I hesitantly started to read the text message exchange between her and Stacy. What I saw made my blood run cold. Stacy. OMG, Emma finally left him. She actually believed me. LOL. Poor fool. Marissa, what are you talking about? Stacy. I told her I saw him making out with some rando in his car. You should have seen her face. Priceless. Marissa, wait, are you serious? Why would you do that? Stacy. Because he's a controlling jerk, and she's too dumb to see it. I had to help her. I scrolled further down, my hands now trembling uncontrollably with a mixture of rage and disbelief. The messages became increasingly venomous, revealing the depth of Stacy's manipulative scheme. Stacy. It's not like their marriage was going to last anyway. Emma's so gullible. She'll believe anything I tell her. The screen's glow burned into my retinas. Marissa had just handed me her phone, and I couldn't believe what I just skimmed. Stacy's words were a venomous cascade, a digital betrayal laid bare. She actually said this? The question escaped my lips, a bare rasp. Marissa's face confirmed my worst fears, a grim nod reflecting genuine disgust. Yeah, she was actually proud of it, almost boasting. I dismissed it at first, but then she started ridiculing Emma for being naive, and it just clicked how twisted everything was. I slumped back against the chair, trying to process the information overload. It wasn't simply a case of lies. Stacy had intentionally wrecked my marriage, all while taking shots at Emma. The level of manipulation, the sheer audacity was staggering. Pure spite, pure entitlement. Why now, Marissa? I finally asked, my voice heavy. Why didn't you tell me any of this sooner? She avoided my gaze, focusing on the lukewarm coffee in her hands. I don't know. I was scared, I guess. Stacy can be intense. But I couldn't keep quiet any longer. It's not fair to you, and it's certainly not fair to Emma. After thanking Marissa for her courage, I copied the incriminating screenshots. The drive home was a blur of replaying the conversation in my head. The anger was a live thing, a fire consuming me from the inside out. I was seething at Stacy for her manipulative, entitled nature. I was angry at Emma, too, for being so easily led, for falling for Stacy's obvious act. And God, was I angry at myself for allowing Stacy's interference to continue for so long, for not seeing the signs. But beneath the fury, a strange sense of vindication was also rising. For months, I'd been questioning myself, second-guessing every decision, plagued by the thought that I had somehow failed. Now I had concrete proof that I wasn't the architect of this disaster. Stacy had deliberately sabotaged everything from the start, and Emma had walked right into her carefully laid trap. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the burning rage had subsided into something far colder, something more calculated. There would be no shouting matches, no public accusations, no dramatic scenes. This would be handled with cold precision. First, I forwarded the screenshots to my lawyer, adding a brief note. This is the real story. Advise on how to proceed. Then, I stared at my phone, a digital abyss challenging me to act. Should I text Emma? Part of me screamed no. What was the point? She'd already made her choice, shown where her allegiance truly lay. But another, smaller part, whispered that she deserved to know the truth, no matter how ugly. It wouldn't change anything, but it was the right thing to do. After a long internal battle, I typed a message. We need to talk. This is important. The reply came almost instantly, a stark contrast to the delay and hesitation I'd grown accustomed to. What do you want? I kept my response clipped and direct. I have proof that Stacy lied. Can we meet? You need to see this. A prolonged silence followed. Then, finally, fine, tomorrow afternoon. Where? I suggested a park near her new place. She agreed. That was it. All I wanted now was to expose the truth. Winning her back was the last thing on my mind. I wasn't interested in that game anymore. I needed Emma to know the truth, if only to clear my name. Believe me, a part of me wanted to just shove those damn screenshots Marissa had sent straight in her face and watch her squirm, but I knew I had to keep it together. The last thing I needed was for her to think I was losing my cool or being overly emotional about any of this. When Emma finally showed up, she looked hesitant, almost nervous, which wasn't like her. She was dressed casually, like always hoodie, jeans, but that spark, that confident air she used to carry, was gone. She saw me and gave a small, almost apologetic wave before walking over. What's this about? She asked, crossing her arms like she was bracing for something. I didn't waste any time. No point in drawing this out. I pulled out my phone, found the screenshots Marissa had sent, and just handed it to her. Read this, I said, keeping my voice level. Emma looked confused, but she took the phone and started scrolling. First, nothing. Her expression was neutral, unreadable. But as she kept reading, I saw her face change in real time. Her eyes widened, her mouth literally fell open, and by the time she got to the last message, she looked completely pale, like she'd seen a ghost. She handed the phone back to me, her hands shaking. She lied, she whispered, almost like she was talking to herself. Yeah, I said, trying to keep my voice steady and not let the anger boil over. She lied about everything. She made up that whole story about me cheating just to break us up, and apparently, she thought it was hilarious. Emma just sat down on the bench next to me, staring at the ground, lost in thought. I didn't know, she said softly. I didn't think she'd ever. You didn't think she'd ever lie to you? I interrupted, and my voice came out sharper than I wanted it to. That's the problem, Emma. You didn't think. You didn't even bother to question it. You just took her word for it and threw me under the bus. She visibly flinched at my words, but she didn't say anything. Do you have any idea how humiliating this has been for me? I continued, the frustration finally spilling out. My friends, my family, even my coworkers started looking at me like I was some kind of scumbag. All because you couldn't take 2 seconds to ask me what really happened. I saw tears starting to well up in her eyes. I thought I was doing the right thing, she said, her voice cracking. Stacy's been my best friend for years. I trusted her. Yeah, well, that trust just cost you your marriage, I said, maybe a bit too bluntly. Emma looked up at me, tears now streaming down her face. I'm so sorry, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. That's the whole problem, Emma, I said, softening my tone a little, but still firm. You didn't know because you didn't even give me a chance to explain. You trusted her more than you trusted me, and that says a lot about what you thought of our relationship. We just sat there in silence for what felt like forever, the weight of everything hanging heavy in the air. Finally, Emma spoke again. I'll cut her off, she said quietly. I'll never talk to her again. We can fix this. We can go to counseling, figure things out. I'll do whatever it takes. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Part of me, a stupid, hopeful part of me, wanted to believe her. But the truth was, the damage had already been done. She'd chosen Stacy over me without even a second thought. I don't think we can fix this, I said, finally saying the words out loud. It's not just about what Stacy did. It's about how easily you believed her. How little trust you had in me. That's not something we can just work through. Emma just started crying harder, full-on sobbing now. I was so stupid, she said between sobs. I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you. Just give me one more chance, she pleaded. I just shook my head. The words felt hollow, rehearsed. I'm sorry, Emma, but I can't do it. It wasn't just about forgiving her, though God knows that was hard enough. It was about the chasm that had opened up between us, the erosion of something fundamental. Trust. And once that went, well, I wasn't sure you could ever truly get it back. She kept crying, those big, dramatic sobs that used to move me. For a fleeting second, a flicker of pity sparked. Almost. But then the memories flooded in. All those nights I'd spent staring at the ceiling, running through every conversation, every interaction, trying to figure out where I'd gone wrong. The isolation, the feeling that I was slowly being erased. And the friends, or what I thought were friends, vanishing like smoke because of Stacy's lies. The moments I'd actually doubted myself, wondering if maybe I was the problem, because Emma had tossed me aside so easily. That erased the pity. I think it's best if we both move on, I said, trying to keep my voice even. I stood, needing to put some distance between us. I wish things could have been different, but this is where we are now. She didn't try to stop me, just sat there, a broken heap, her face buried in her hands. I walked away. I didn't look back. It sounds cliché, but for the first time in months, I felt a sliver of control over my own life again. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was Emma. A long, rambling text, another apology, another desperate plea to reconsider. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, I locked my phone and put it face down on the table. There was nothing left to say. Stacy's twisted story might have been the spark, the catalyst that set everything in motion. But Emma's lack of faith in me, her willingness to believe the worst, that was the real rot at the core. And honestly, at this point, I wasn't interested in salvaging something that was decayed beyond repair. So, instead of replying, I forwarded those screenshots to a few of the mutual friends who'd so readily abandoned me. No commentary, no explanation. I just let the texts speak for themselves. The fallout was immediate. My phone didn't stop buzzing for hours. Apologies, explanations, messages of support flooded in. Wow! I can't believe Stacy would do that. One message read. I'm so sorry for doubting you. You didn't deserve this, said another. Let me know if there's anything I can do. It was a relief, I guess, to have some validation, to know I wasn't crazy. But the damage was done. I wasn't interested in rekindling those friendships. If they'd been so quick to believe the worst about me, they weren't people I wanted in my life. As for Stacy, I didn't bother confronting her. What would be the point? She'd already revealed who she was. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of knowing how deeply she'd cut. A few days later, the news started trickling in, even though I'd consciously shut myself off. A couple of people, probably fueled by guilt, felt the need to keep me in the loop. One friend, Sarah, called. You're not going to believe this, but Stacy's basically been ostracized. Apparently, once the truth came out, everyone started distancing themselves. Marissa had shared the screenshots with a few more people, and it spread like wildfire. Stacy, of course, tried to spin it, claiming she was just looking out for Emma, that I was controlling and toxic. But no one was buying it anymore. She's completely unraveling, Sarah said, a hint of glee in her voice. She's been posting these long, rambling rants on social media about how everyone's turned against her and how she's the real victim. Curiosity, or maybe a touch of morbid fascination, got the better of me. I checked Stacy's profiles using an incognito browser, of course. Sure enough, there they were. Multiple posts lamenting fake friends who had abandoned her, claiming she'd only tried to help. One post even read, "So, I guess people can't handle the truth. I stood up for Emma when no one else would, and now I'm the bad guy." Pathetic. The comments were brutal. Most people were calling her out. "You didn't help anyone. You ruined a marriage," one person wrote. Another, "Seitan is what happens when you manipulate people." Someone even said, "Maybe take a good hard look at yourself before blaming everyone else." It was satisfying to see her finally facing the consequences of her actions. Meanwhile, Emma's situation wasn't much better. She'd moved back in with her parents after everything fell apart. From what I heard, it was tense. Her mom, who had never been a fan of Stacy, was furious when she learned the truth. Another mutual friend told me about a particularly nasty argument Emma had with her mom. Apparently, her mom had said, "You threw away a good man for a liar. How could you be so stupid?" Harsh, maybe, but honestly, she wasn't wrong. Emma was struggling to pick up the pieces, but it wasn't going well. Her attempts to reconnect with some of our old friends were met with mixed reactions. A few were willing to forgive her, but most weren't. The trust was gone, just like it was for me. Frankly, I wasn't surprised when I saw the fallout begin. I saw how easily she turned on me, and I knew others must have noticed too. I remember Sarah, someone I barely spoke to anymore, saying, "She looks miserable, like she's putting on a brave face, but you can tell she's regretting everything." I didn't dwell on it much, but it stuck with me. Then, a few weeks later, I got a message from Marissa. She still worked with Stacy. "Just thought you'd want to know. Stacy got fired today." It turns out her reputation had finally caught up with her. People at work had found out what she'd done, the kind of person she truly was, and were distancing themselves. She'd always been a bit of a drama queen in the office, but this was the final straw. Nobody wanted anything to do with her. Eventually, the boss caught wind of the tension and let her go. They cited interpersonal issues as the reason. I'd like to say I felt bad, but I didn't. She'd spent years manipulating people and creating chaos, and this felt like the chickens coming home to roost. Life, meanwhile, was getting better for me. A few months after everything blew up, I bumped into Marissa at a coffee shop. We chatted for a while, and she was full of the latest gossip. "You won't believe this," she said, rolling her eyes. "Emma reached out to Stacy a few weeks ago." I was genuinely curious. What happened? She explained that Emma had apparently tried to apologize, saying she wanted to move forward. But Stacy just laughed in her face. She told Emma she was pathetic for even trying and that she was better off without her. I just shook my head, a mixture of amusement and disbelief. Figures. Stacy never takes responsibility for anything. Marissa just smirked. "Yeah, well, they're both getting what they deserve." Looking back now, I can't say I'm exactly happy with how things played out, but I am grateful for where I ended up. That toxic dynamic between Stacy and Emma was a disaster waiting to happen, and I was just collateral damage. But in the end, they seemed to have destroyed each other, while I got to walk away. It's a strange thing, life. Karma isn't always immediate, but when it does arrive, it can be brutal. They both learned that lesson the hard way, and I'm okay with it. They made their choices, and now they're living with the consequences. I'm moving on. I've built a life that makes me happy. A life surrounded by people who genuinely care about me. Honestly, that's the best revenge I could have asked for. It's about peace of mind, and finally, I have it.